Alright. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Hidden Key with me, Korik. I am your Reiki master, tarot reader, astrologer, woodworker, animator, longshoreman, cook, hairdresser. I've done a lot of things, but here we're talking about shamanism today. So let's dive in. So, shamanism. What the hell is it, and what can you do with it? Alright, so the first thing you should know about shamanism is it's something that's practiced all over the world. Like, every culture every culture has some form of shamanism ingrained into the structure of its spiritual beliefs. Some do divination and journeying, others just do like healing. It's kind of like the old equivalent to being a witch, I suppose, but shamans were usually revered in their communities and were looked to for guidance, basically the wise man or woman of a particular village or, town or whatever. And you would go to a shaman with a gift generally, and you would ask for healing, either of your body or your spirit or both, and the shaman was able to facilitate that with various practices such as like herbalism, just words even, but oftentimes they employed shamanic journeying, and we'll get into that later. So the shamans in general, they never charged for their services because as a spiritual sort of like a leader, it wasn't supposed to be this kind of greed position where you're asking for something from someone. It all mattered on a personal level for the person coming who was sick or that needed help to bring a gift that was of the same level of importance to them as whatever illness was going on. So if someone was very sick but didn't have a whole lot, they would, give them something that was of value to them, like a goat or, whatever, or, a piece of jewelry that they cherished, just something of great personal value. Nowadays, of course, we use money, and shamans generally, because of the way the economy is and everything, I'm not a shaman, they charge for their services, and rightfully so. There's a lot of training, and there is a lot of just meditation and preparation for the path. Okay, so what is the shamanic path? Well, first of all, in shamanism, the core element is everything is medicine. And what do I mean by that? Well, if you look around, you see leaves on a tree or, grass on the ground, and you think, what is the medicine of that animal or plant in that case? And what can it do? Well, the grass, it's there as a nice soft place for you to lay. You could think of it in that way, or it's a place for smaller animals to travel through without being preyed upon by aerial creatures or larger insects or whatever. And you can think the same thing about clouds. Like, what does a cloud bring to you? And clouds bring shade. They bring precious rain. So clouds have their own medicine as well. And if you start looking at everything under this kind of lens of medicine and purpose, things start to become a little bit more clear as to what a shaman is really doing. So once you're into, a session with a shaman, they might bring up your dreams, like what have you been dreaming about, and then looking at the medicine of each of those dream symbols and analyzing it that way. Not all shamans analyze dreams, of course, but the dream realm is of significance, and I hold it in a high regard myself. Now, moving forward onto the methods of shamanism. something that is almost always employed when it comes to shamanism is a drum. Now, I actually have a drum here. Okay, so what is often employed in shamanism is a drum. And it's not only for ceremonial purposes or, just having like around a fire or to lift spirits. It's actually a tool of divination. Now, using the shamanic drum, this is a drum I actually made out of a deer hide. It was provided to me by Tribal Spirit Music, I believe. You can find them on Instagram and on website and stuff. But this is a little kit that came together. The skin, the ring, and the stick came separately, and I had to put it all together, it's a kit. Duh. I don't need to explain that. Anyways, so using the drum, if you listen, the drum is a powerful sound, and cultures all over the world have drums. Like, you won't find a culture on this planet that doesn't have a drum. And the essence of the drum is vibration. Now, if you think about everything from the level of quantum physics or just energy in general, like we talked about in the other video, everything comes down to vibration and the vibration that you carry. And so if we think about what shamans were doing when it came to using vibration and using the drum to facilitate growth and introspection, we start to think, or when using the drum, I lost my train of thought completely here. When we're using the drum in a shamanic way, we're bringing up the vibration of the person. We're kind of aligning everything to this one unified, constant beat. Now, shamans all over the world. Now, shamans all over the world, at one point or another, actually employed Shamans all over the world at some point employed shamanic drumming as a method of getting into a trance state. There was also other methods, like using a headdress that had like a beaded sort of curtain in front of it to kind of break up the visual field. But the drum was used to break up the audio field and the vibratory field. And what you were able to do once you were in the kind of trance state was start shamanic journeying. Now, shamanic journeying is a really interesting topic, and before we get into that, we have to talk about the levels of shamanism and the shamanic realm in general. Okay, so we have the material realm, and that is everything we can see, everything we can touch, everything we can smell, sense, everything. Now, that level exists also on the kind of etheric levels. Call it astral projection. So, when you're on this level, this medium level, and you go into a shamanic state of consciousness, which is just the drum beat going like that. That will actually break up your consciousness and allow you to travel into this realm. Now, there are drum tracks all over YouTube that I could recommend later, but we'll get into that after. So basically, you have these three levels of shamanism. You have the medium level, the middle world, this is what they call it, and that is the world of everyday things, of people, of places, and oftentimes this is where healing work takes place for other people. Like you go into a shamanic state of consciousness and you work on someone else's energy body or their spirit on that level. Now there's another two levels. Now the level below is called like the underworld or the lower level. Now you may think, oh, that's like hell or something. It's actually not. It's amazing. It's basically all the earthly spirits, all like the spirits of trees and rocks and all nature forces, but also nature archetypes. Now I've encountered a few things in that world that actually seem like parts of other worlds, which is really interesting. It's proof that all these kind of things are kind of intermixed in a strange way. Anyway, let's move on. Now there's the upper world, which is the realm of like spirits and archetypes and gods and goddesses and every sort of thought form or egregore that exists out there. And oftentimes you can meet your teacher on any one of these levels. Now let's go into that. What can you do with shamanism? I must have a disclaimer first of all before I start talking about what to do or how to enter this state of mind. Shamanism is a very potent and serious thing. And so take none of this lightly. This is more like information. This is not an instructional how-to. And you can encounter dangers, because when you're entering into an altered state of consciousness, you're actually going deeper into, like, I would say, like, the more theta brainwaves. And I guess I'll do another video on brainwaves. But basically, you have your beta state, which is like your normal everyday busy doing stuff. And then you have your alpha state, which is like, relaxed. Maybe you just woke up or something, very kind of mellow. And then you have your theta state, which is more like you're in maybe a trance or maybe you're dreaming. And then you have, I think, a delta state. And that is where, like, you are deep into, like, your subconscious. So generally, my sense is that I'm mostly in a theta state when I journey. And when you're in that state, you're actually interacting more so with, like, your deep kind of self. Now, if you're introducing ideas or you're affecting other things in a negative way from that level, and this is what I mean by it could be dangerous or potentially harmful, is if you're going into that state into your own mind and you don't know what you're doing, it's like rewriting code on a program or something. If you change a bunch of numbers or something and you come back out and things are different or weird or you don't understand what's going on, it's probably because you did something you didn't understand. And that's fine. Like, you can do that and you can always recover from that. It'll take more work. Obviously, you'll have to discover more about yourself, and it's a path. Now, there's also the question of ethics when it comes to shamanism. Now, shamans are trained from, like, day one, basically, that nothing you do can be done to someone else without their permission. It's kind of like if you're doing shamanic work without someone's permission, you're basically doing sorcery. And if you follow the teachings of any sort of spiritual practice, like, shamanism or like Wicca, it's basically whatever you put out, you're going to get back like 3 or 10-fold. So if you're putting out negative thoughts and negative thought forms towards someone else as like a revenge or something, it's going to come back to you. And it's going to come back to you in a really hard way, and you will not like it. Guaranteed. So when you're working in this way, you always have to be from the most centered place in yourself that you can possibly be, in connection with your higher self, and just holding space. First of all, you hold space for yourself, and you hold space for your best possible being. Like, and this is you, this is your experience. So if you're just doing it for yourself, by all means, explore it, like, dive in and start discovering about yourself. But when it comes to other people and working with other people, it's definitely not a beginner thing, and I don't recommend it. But you also have to consider the ethics of something. Like, would you like it if someone was, like, even if they meant well, introducing ideas and thoughts into your spirit body from someone like you don't know, or even from family that you don't know? You always have to have permission when working with someone else's energy, always. Even if you think it's innocent or whatever, these are powerful thought forms, and thoughts are things. That is something that is, like, integral to shamanism and a lot of metaphysical beliefs in general, is that thoughts are things. In some cultures, I believe, the shamanic apprentices are sent out into, like, underneath a tree, and they're told to look at a branch on the tree or twig, and they're meant to stare at the branch until the point when the branch breaks. And that's when they understand that thoughts are things, that thoughts have power. It's like if you've ever felt someone sending daggers across the room with their eyes, like you can feel that energy. Like that's real stuff, and we've all felt that. So yeah, it's real stuff. Okay, so how to journey. This is an interesting one, and this is by no means a replacement for actual knowledge, actual research on for yourself. I'll list some books down below of resources and stuff you can get into with this. So how do we journey? Okay, well now we know that there's 3 levels, right? We start in the beginning. So in your first ever journey, you're going to have a drum track on. It could be a guided meditation. I recommend having some sort of little ritual before you do any sort of journey work. Like I light a candle, I light some incense, I call in my guides, I spray some mist around, I bring in all the elements, all the directions, kind of make it a magical practice. And then I sit on my bed or wherever I feel comfortable. I sit on a pillow or whatever makes my body feel comfortable, but I don't lay down, because if I lay down I fall asleep, and falling asleep isn't the greatest when you're trying to remember all these visions and stuff that you're encountering. Now what I do is something a little bit different, and maybe I'll go into it after. But the main thing is you put on a blindfold, you have your drum track on, and you just concentrate on your breathing. You go into a meditative state. So what I like to do, how I like to focus on my breath, is I breathe in for 8, hold 4, breathe out 8, hold 4, and then repeat the cycle. And after a few cycles or several cycles of this, I start to feel more relaxed. My brain feels like it's shifting along with the constant beat of the drum. And I find it's almost like a meditation, even if you weren't journeying, it's super beneficial. It just knocks you out of a state of worrying about people or things you have to do, and just, it's like a forced meditation almost. Now, from that state, the first journey you should have is how to meet your power animal. Now, the thing about journeying is you are taking your spirit and you're putting it in a different plane of reality. You call it astral projecting or whatever you'd like, but basically you're removing your spirit from your body. Kind of. You're projecting it somewhere else. And if you were to just venture off willy-nilly somewhere, you don't know what you're going to encounter. And that's why it's mandatory that you have an animal guide to guide you where you want to go or where they want you to go. Because animal spirits, your ancestors, your higher self, they all know what you need in your development, and they will show you whatever you need to know. Now, in your first meditation, in your first journey, the best thing you can do is to imagine yourself in a beautiful place that you know. Maybe it was in your childhood. It could even be a beautiful picture that you can just imagine yourself there. And just really what you want to focus on is how it feels. Like if you can feel the sand, if you feel the trees, and if you can, sense the wind moving around you, or the smell whatever is going on, like hear the wind, see the light in the trees maybe, or the light glistening or the light glistening off of the ocean, or wherever you imagine yourself. You could be on the top of the Himalayas. Like it could really be anything. Somewhere you feel safe, you feel calm, and you can kind of start from there. Now, once you've established kind of your senses and you can really feel yourself there, that's when you would start to look around. Kind of soft focus, kind of look around, really take in all the details that you can. And then what you do is you wait for an animal to show up, or you ask, what is my power animal? What is my spirit animal? Who is here for me? And you may see little animals in the background, or or bushes or whatever. Those could be animals that are belonging to your soul, things that from like a past life, or just creatures that you know in reality that you have an affinity for, like a cat or a dog. But you will know for sure what animal is your animal, because it will show up for you in a big way. Now, once you have that animal, once you're face to face with that animal, you kind of go on an adventure with it. And you, no expectations, just go with whatever it says, go with wherever it goes. Like, your spirit animal will not mislead you. That is something you can trust inherently. It may show you positive things, like beautiful scenes, vistas, things about yourself, or it could show you things that you really need to work on. And those are often the best things, because it's like you really need to work through something, and that is growth. The things you need to work through are always growth, and that is the best. Now, the first time you go out, you should just mainly focus on that journey, that first, experiencing what it's like to be that animal. Maybe you turn into a bird and follow the bird that you followed, or maybe you're a fish and you swim around and see what it's like to be a fish, experience the water, or experience the air, or maybe you're a bull and you feel what it's like to be on the open fields, and the power that you have, and just really, really soak into what it means to be that animal. Because that animal is not just that animal, it's all of that animal. So all crows, all fish, like all salmon, for instance. Salmon is very wise, one of the wisest animals, because it came from the water, and then fish, lizards, mammals, people, like we all came from something, right? So fish, or salmon especially, is one of the more ancient fish. You can get into dinosaurs even, like maybe yours is a stegosaurus. Like, it can really, it can be anything. It can be mythological. It can just be some sort of spirit that you have an affinity towards, and that has an affinity towards you. So this is the realm of spirit, and anything is possible. So don't limit yourself, and don't think just because you felt something that it isn't real, or that it's stupid, because it's not. And a good way to know that it's actually an animal of yours or not, like a guide, is if you see it in like 3 different angles. Like if it takes you and you see it from the back, or you see it facing you, and then you see it like the top view of it. It's like, if you have a whole picture of what that animal is in your mind and in your spirit, like that, then it's yours. That's your creature. Now, in subsequent journeys you may go on after this. Now, if you Now, after going on an adventure with your creature, Now, once you've gone on an adventure with your creature, and the drum starts to change, starts to get a little bit louder, like boom, 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 boom. That's the callback signal. And what it's doing is it's calling you back to your body, telling you that it's time to return. So then what you do is you start to like backtrack all your steps. Say you went for a flight through the forest or whatever. Try to remember where you were, and go all the way back to where you started from. It's really important that you kind of ground yourself in creating this map of reality, because where you start off from is your start point. And if you always start from there, you'll always know where you've been and how to return. Now, if you just pick any old place randomly, then it's like starting from a random place on a map. It's like you could be anywhere. And unless you have really good bearings on how to return and where exactly you are in the universe, then it's very difficult to come back. Not to say that you can't just open your eyes and just come back to reality. Of course you can. But when you're building a map, it's important to have a kind of a structure, a home base, if you will. Now once you come back to your body, just remember just to breathe and feel like you're inside your body and kind of come back to it. The drum journey will end, the track will close with a few like big beats like and that's generally how they end. And you come back down, and then you can kind of like undo your blindfold and take off your headphones or whatever, your earbuds, and just come back to your reality. And that is the first journey. Now, that was just on the medium, the middle plane of reality. That was just this plane of reality. Now it gets really interesting when you start to go up and down. Now for me, I venture into the upper world a lot and the lower world. I don't really do a whole lot of work in the middle world other than healing and doing like Reiki on people in the shamanic realm, which is very interesting. But when you go into the upper world, that's where you can find your like ascended masters, your teachers, the beings that really want to teach you something, that are egregores or thought forms that are manifested by all the belief of everyone else, like combine into a being that is there for you. Now you could be religious, you could be non-religious, and you could find religious beings there. Like you could find Jesus, you could find like Mother Mary, you could find Buddha, you could find anybody that resonates with you and who you are. Now, when you go up into the upper world, it's a little bit interesting because what you want to do is you want to go with your spirit animal and see where they take you. They may take you like up a tree or up a chimney or, just really anywhere. And the same thing goes for going into the ground or going down a waterfall, like going into the water, or going into some tree roots, or down into a cave. And that's where you can kind of encounter like more animals. I find like there's a lot more earthy energy down there that at least from my experience. I guess I can go on more on the levels in a different video because this video is already getting kind of long and you're probably bored. But yeah, I'll make another video on the upper world and the lower world and talk about my experiences as well. Maybe I'll just say one experience here. For each of the levels, like for the middle world, the upper level, and the lower level, there's multiple levels of that level, like branching layers of that level. So once you get into the upper level, once you get into the upper level, you kind of, first the process is you kind of go up and you keep on rising up and up and up and up, and you don't necessarily hit space, like you don't start going into the cosmos because that's still the middle world, but you enter some sort of, I want to say like a barrier or some sort of layer that feels more thick, like you're meeting more resistance, or maybe it's thin, or it just feels different and you just pop through. And then you're on the other side and you're like, whoa, this is different. This is definitely different than what I was experiencing before. Cool. And it might not feel very definite, like defined, I mean. At first, it may be something you need to work on and keep visiting in order to kind of make sense of. It's good to pay attention to the colors and the sounds and what you see, just as you would in the first meditation. And yeah, and then from there, you can look around and see if your teacher's there. If you encounter a being, you can just ask it, "Are you my teacher?" And it may say yes, and by all means, and continue talking to that being. And what I mean by talking to it is you can actually ask it questions, and you may hear answers back, and they may come in the form of like maybe your own voice talking to yourself. But just listen and just because it's a teacher doesn't mean you have to stay with that teacher. If you don't like what it's saying, say it's negative or trying to convince you of things, then you can just say, okay, I'm going to go find a new teacher. This is your reality. You can make whatever you want. So if you're uncomfortable, move on. Now, if you come up to the first level and you're like, wow, there's nobody here. Well, then you look around. Maybe there's a way to go up higher. Like it could be a ladder, could be a pole, could be some stairs, or you could just jump up to another platform. Like maybe there's something else up there. And then once you're on that level, you can do the same thing. Ask for a teacher, ask for guidance, ask for whatever, but pay attention to the difference between the levels. And know that you weren't just on the first level, you're on the second level now. Because this, once again, is building on your map of reality, of this alternate reality of sorts. Now for me, that second level of reality is it's quite different from the first. So I encountered a being there, my guide, and it's a guide that I ended up working with many times. Like it's been actually a part of my life for about 15 years and I didn't even know. It's an interesting story. I'll tell it later. But when you can keep going up, if like say your teacher's not there one day, you can just go to the next level and see if there's a teacher there for you. There may be, may not be. Like maybe it's abstract and you go up a waterfall in the second world and that's how you get to the third level of the upper world. Like it's infinitely it's infinite, like, is the thing, and you can be as granular with this as you want. Some practices say that there's only 10 levels, like as many levels as you have fingers, but others say there's hundreds. It really depends on the culture that the shaman was around at the time. And yeah, well, and the same thing, you can go lower and find lower beings. But you also have, now at the same time, now once you're up in the upper world and you are interacting with these beings, that drum signal will happen again. You'll get the call back, so you'll have to come back to earth again. You have to go the same way you came, come all the way back down, center yourself in your body, and boom, you're back home. And now you can always go back. Now that you have those steps, you can always go back to those places. And you're every time you go there, you're increasing that sort of plane of existence, and it'll become easier and easier to visualize and be in over time. Now I hope you like that description of shamanism. This is a super dry, super chopped down version of what it is, and this is mostly about shamanic journeying. I really love shamanic journeying. I've been doing it almost every day for the last year, and I've gotten some amazing insights about the world, about energy. I've received healings from my guides. I've received wisdom from my guides, and I've explored a bunch of avenues of reality that I never even thought possible. And I tell you that shamanic journeying is probably more powerful than any sort of psychotropic drug you could take, and you can just do it on your bed. There's no drugs, and you're just going into a meditative state. It is by far the most amazing tool for self-development and for healing work. And if you're a healer person and you enjoy this kind of stuff, like enjoy meditating and visualization, then you'll love journeying. And I highly recommend you check out some books on the subject, because this is by all means not a super informative thing. It is just like here it is. Maybe it interests you, maybe it doesn't. So I highly recommend it, and look it up. I'll leave some books in the description below, and yeah, I hope you're interested, because it's amazing. It's a great tool. So yeah, if you want to hear more about shamanism, I'll make some more videos. If you want to read some books on it, it's really cool. I'll leave those links below. And yeah, if you like this video, please hit the subscribe button. I will be making many more videos just about the random stuff that I've learned over the years from the many different fields that I've experienced. And of course, I'll be doing more tarot videos. and more videos like this. So yeah, hit subscribe if you want to know more, if you're interested, and I really appreciate it. Sincerely, I really do. Alright guys, well thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you so much. Love you.